developed expertise in consulting and advising private and public sector on skills of the future finance professionals. In doing so, she has been an active contributor to ACCA qualification development and professional insights work. She has supported universities in Asia, Africa, and Europe in understanding the employability and learning behavior and needs of the future generations and employers. She has a PhD degree in financial reporting, and her research interests include generation of tomorrow, personalized digital learning evaluation, and sustainability. She will make a talk titled Building Bridges, Fulfilling Future, Nurturing Future Accountants Through Stronger Industrial Academia Collaboration. Welcome, Dr. Sajjad. It is very nice to be here to listen you here. So you have the word.
Thank you very much. And thanks for the introduction. I have been completely mesmerized by the presentation of the museums and the music. I just want to make sure, am I sharing my screen? Can people see my screen? Because I am trying to share my screen, but I can't see. Okay, I think now everyone can see it. So thank you very much for having me here, and thanks for the introduction. It did take me a minute to transfer myself from the museums of Turkey to the presentation of today that I'm going to be doing. It is indeed an honor, a delight to be here and to be part of a conference that has connections with what I think is the most fascinating country in the world, Turkey. Turkey does happen to be the place that I visited. That was the last country that I visited before the world became completely different. And I know in the last 18 minutes or so much has changed for all of us, personally, professionally. And I do hope that you and your families and everyone around you has remained safe during this unprecedented period of change. And I hope that some of the friends that I can see over here from Turkey, that I do meet them soon, and then we can talk about the 18 months or how our lives have changed. But today's presentation is also about the change, but it is about the change in the business world, how the business world has changed, how our work life has changed, and very importantly, how the role of accountants has changed. In a period of change, questions are something that are definitely asked. I remember speaking at a conference in Turkey 2 years back, and there were questions like, do we need data? Do we need online learning? Do we need digital conferences? Now nobody asks those questions, but a question that people like me who work at ACCA are asked quite frequently these days is, how has the role of accountant changed due to the unprecedented change of the last 18 months? Are accountants relevant? What will keep them relevant? And that is going to be the focus of my presentation. This is briefly the agenda for my presentation. I will start by talking about the main drivers of change as to why and what is changing the business world. Then I will talk about the change, about what does the change mean in terms of the core capabilities that accountants of today, preferably, but the accountants of tomorrow definitely would need to survive and to excel. Then I'm going to talk about what the employers expect from accountants, and also touch on the gaps that exist between employers' expectations and the capabilities of the accountants. I'm going to bring some of my own personal professional experience from ACCA as to what we are doing to bridge the expectation gap. Then in the end, I'm just going to leave you all with a few reflections, a few thoughts on how I think professional bodies like ACCA, universities, academics, researchers, and employers can come together to ensure 500,000 students and members all over the world. The way ACCA does research is very important for ACCA is that our students and members are relevant to the employers. And for that reason, we continuously engage with employers. So our research, which we call professional insights, is based on talking to business leaders. When COVID-19 happened, the first thing that ACCA had to do was to make sure that our students have the digital learning option. They do have access to exams through remote invigilation. But then the other thing that they wanted to focus on was, how are we going to ensure that accountants are the one leading the change that COVID-19 has brought along? And in that process, from October 2020 to June 2021, we talked to more than 5,000 business leaders across the world. And this is what it shows the scale. And whatever I'm going to be saying in this presentation is based on the engagement with the business leaders. So what does our research show? So the first question that we asked the business leaders was, has COVID-19 had any impact on the profession, and will it continue to have an impact going ahead? As the slide over here does show, that a huge majority of the business leaders do think that COVID-19 will bring a huge amount of change for the accounting profession. Now, the change they think can be an opportunity, it can be a risk. And it depends very much on how the accountants seize the opportunity. And in seizing the opportunity, there are few things that they would like accountants to focus on. Now this slide shows the thoughts of the business leaders. Business leaders do think that accountants are at times a bit resistant to change. And the reason they say is that in the last 5 years or so, there have been a number of opportunities for accountants to move from number crunchers, reporters, to being seen as someone who adds value. And business leaders do think that today and going forward, the main focus of the accountant would have to be to create value, to protect value, to report value. They do see 4 important careers for the accountants: transformation drivers, enterprise analysts, stakeholders reporters, and assurance providers. And the onus is on accountants, and the onus is on people like us to enable the accountants of today and tomorrow to seize this opportunity that the business leaders would like the accountants to seize. But one thing that is clear, before I go into the details of the research, no matter how much at times we are overwhelmed with technology, humans remain at the center of each and every change. Business leaders are quite clear. Technology will not replace humans. Even if the accountants do not drive the change, some other profession would. But humans, human touch, human feelings, human interaction, like for now, I'm seeing some of you on the screen, but if I was in a conference room, I would have been able to see all of you. And I think the feeling, the connection that I could have had then, I simply can't have it right now. So the human touch would always be the most important thing. Now, going back to the research, and I am going to tell you the name of the research in a minute. In the opinion of the business leaders, what are the main drivers of change? The drivers of change that the business leaders think are 5. And within each of these 5, there are then some important trends. I will not be able to go through all these trends in the short time that I have, but I encourage you to read this report called Professional Accountants at the Heart of Sustainable Organizations. And that will give you the details of all these different trends, but I'm going to pick up a few trends. The first one, economy as the driver of change. And within it, if we think of government takes a bigger role. In the last 18 months or so, there has been a huge pressure on the governments. We have seen the debt going up. We have seen the government inflation hard rising, currency devaluation, so many crises being faced by the government. But at the same time, we have seen the role of government become bigger. I, for now, am based in Pakistan, and I see a lot of investment from the government within the construction sector, within the social welfare systems, within poverty alleviation, within skills upskilling. And that is a trend that we see in other parts of the world also. I have quoted a World Bank report over here, which does show that the investment, the spending by the government has been increasing in the last 18 months or so. And as the role of the government increases, the need for transparency, the need for public financial management, the need for better policy decisions would become much more. And that is a role for accountants. Accountants have been there in the public sector, but now there is an opportunity to create new roles for accountants. Environment. I don't need to tell you, and I'm sure many of you would have been following the action in Glasgow in the last few weeks. Environment seems to be the main thing. Environment, social governance, indicators, measures, their reporting. That always has, that for the last, I think, 15 or 20 years, that has been a focus. But now the accountants are being asked much more than ever to manage these risks, to measure the risks, to manage, measure, quantify, explain the impact of the businesses on natural capital. I know policy leaders and sometimes politicians and others have tried to brush environment under the carpet, but we do know that environment, social governance indicators are here to stay. So the opportunity for accountants to take a leadership over here and for us to enable the accountants is definitely there. The next one is society. COVID-19 has made the case for an equitable, inclusive, open for all society, the need for ethical leadership much more. Our generation, but the generation which is in the age group of 15 to 25 years, and there is research that ACCA has done on that generation also, which is available on ACCA's website. They would like to work for organizations which are ethical, which are inclusive. And one would say, what's the role of accountant over there? Well, the role of accountant over there, as our research shows, is a lot. And accountants are expected not only to report on social indicators, but also because of their ethical training to provide the ethical leadership within the organizations so that organizations become inclusive, equitable, open for all. Technology. I don't think I need to be saying much on technology, but we all do know it's the age of technology and it will only accelerate from here onwards. But I've included a World Economic Forum survey over here, which does give an indication of the main technologies to be adopted by 2025. And some of the main technologies over there, not surprisingly, are cybersecurity, cloud computing, big data, automation, artificial intelligence, and over there, accountants are expected to adopt these technologies and then to use these technologies for the purpose of auditing, reporting, data mining, cybersecurity risk management. So there are a number of opportunities within that sapphire also for accountants. workforce. As all these changes take place, very important to recognize is that the world of learning and the world in which we work is changing for accountants. Accountants traditionally have been used to working in silos, working in offices. Now the office is becoming hybrid. And this would require development of certain behaviors that maybe accountants did not have previously. The accountants of today may have been trained in a very traditional kind of way, but the accountants of tomorrow would have access to digital learning, they would have access to micro-learning, they would have access to creating their own learning journey. And what would it mean for the accountants of today is to evolve their skills, is to be committed to continuous learning, is to reskill, is to begin used to different type of learning and development journeys, is to gain experience in different sectors. And all this does bring opportunities, but huge risks. And I think there is an opportunity for all of us over here also, as we design our own learning journeys, qualifications, as we design our curriculum, as to how the accountants of tomorrow would like to be trained. So these were some key drivers of change. I am more than happy to take any questions in the chat, but I will be taking questions at the end of the presentation. So given these drivers of change, what does it mean in terms of the core capabilities of the accountants? And over here, what we did was that we tested 6 hypotheses with the business leaders in terms of the future of business and the future of accountants. So the 6 hypotheses. The first hypothesis that we talked about was, will in the future, and by the future we mean 2 to 5 years, will organizations be driven by real-time customer-centric decision-making? And in that we meant that standardized processes would be enabled by technology and data mining would provide facts and insight. The second hypothesis was, trusted data will be open and accessible across the organization. And each and every decision would be driven by data, intellectual capital, tagging, blockchain, all this will become very important. The third hypothesis was, finance team will spend all of their time on generating insight. This, as you would see later, proved to be quite discussion stimulating, because what we over here are saying that the future of finance team, the future of accountants is on creating and generating insights so as to enable organizations to make decisions in an agile way. The fourth hypothesis was that traditional roles will disappear, new roles, skills, and career paths will be needed. We will need data scientists, accountants will need to be having some data science knowledge. We would need system architects, we will need data agility, we will need businesses of any type and profession and roles of any type to be exhibiting the behaviors of startups. There would be different career paths, or maybe there will not be any career paths and people will just be designing their own career journey as they go along. The fifth hypothesis was the finance function will become virtual. As people like, for example, I live in Pakistan for now, and I have a role which is supposed to be based in London. Just like that, and you would have seen LinkedIn now promoting remote roles. The hypothesis over here is that going ahead, there would be virtual teams which would be global. This would result in a productivity revolution, provision of a different type of an ecosystem, and widespread use of artificial intelligence. The sixth hypothesis was that the traditional role of a chief financial officer or the traditional role of an accountant will no longer exist. And in that, there were some things that we wanted to test. Will there be an accounting qualification needed at a senior level? Will the role of accountants and CFOs be more focused on external stakeholder management and not on internal operations? So these were the hypotheses. We did a survey with 5,000 business leaders, and these were the results. Now the results. So in terms of the results, for most of the hypotheses, we did get an agreement, except the last one, where almost 50% people said CFO role will no, there isn't a possibility that the role of a CFO, the role of an accountant will not exist in the future. But other than that, there was a consensus that the hypothesis that we were presenting is something that would be the future of the organizations and that of the accounting and finance function. Now, we did get some more insights for these hypotheses also, as we discussed much more. And some of the responses was that data is going to be crucial. Data, they say, is the new oil, because data would provide the insights, the knowledge to make the right decisions. Accuracy of the decisions is going to be much more, accuracy of the decisions would be important, but going ahead, maybe 100% accuracy would not be possible, because the environment in which we would be living would be fast changing, rapid, would require agile decisions. And accountants, CFOs, they would be needed, but they would be needed for their strategic insights. They would be needed as the custodians of ethics and governance, as custodians of ethics, environment, social and governance standards. And there is considerable amount of thinking that if not the accountants of today, the accountants of future would very much like to be the one driving the change, for accountants to become the leaders of the organization and to be leading each and every change within the organization. But in terms of all this happening, there is still a lot of resistance. And the resistance comes from a number of factors. But if we look at this graph, some of the resistance comes from lack of understanding, lack of skills, lack of capabilities, or limited capabilities, limited skills, digital understanding not being there, working in silos. One of the main things that the business leaders do think is, what will prevent the accountants from seizing the opportunities being presented by the changes of today and yesterday is skills, competencies, capabilities, behaviors. And in terms of the behaviors, skills, capabilities, what are the employers looking for? I've tried to do a slide so that, because I don't have a lot of time, but if you want to get much more information about it, read the report that I mentioned. This is what the employers expect from the accountants of today, preferably, but also the accountants of tomorrow and day after. Of course, it will keep on changing. They want expertise. And in terms of expertise, the general thinking is that the technical knowledge is there. The technical knowledge of financial reporting, risk management, advisory, consultancy, that is there. Accountants do have it. Ethics, the knowledge, the understanding, the application, the appreciation, it is definitely on the increase. And that's because of all the great work that you all have been doing in developing business ethics courses, focusing on ethical leadership. The third one, insight. That is what business leaders think is missing. And insight is important, as I mentioned again and again. The future of accountants, the future of organizations is based on insights. How good the insights are, how rich the insights are. The data is there, the technology is there. Needed is critical thinking, innovation, business acumen, planning, project management, to be able to provide that insight that help the businesses make the not the right decision, but as much of a right decision as they can. And because we live in a world that is constantly changing, insights, intelligent insights are very important. So these kinds of behaviors employers would like the accountants to develop for much more. Collaboration. As I said previously, going ahead, the accounting teams are going to be virtual. They can be anywhere, but they will need to work together. And then the accountants, much more today than ever before, need to work across the organization. For them to drive the change, they need to have influencing skills. They need to have communication skills. They need to have engagement skills. They need to be stakeholder focused, and they need to collaborate. And that's what employers think academics, professional bodies need to work with employers on creating, developing these behaviors. Another one is digital, and I think I mentioned digital, and I won't be going into it because we do know what type of skills are needed when we talk about digital. Drive is a very soft kind of a behavior, but business leaders do think accountants need drive. They need determination. They need commitment to lifelong learning, authenticity, leadership, being able to adapt to change very quickly. And they would like these kinds of behaviors to be developed by academics, professional bodies working with employers in the accountants of today and tomorrow. Sustainability, I think I've mentioned it a number of times. Much more than ever, reporting, measuring, managing environmental, social, governance risks, that is very much important. So this is what the employers are looking for in the accountants of today and tomorrow. Now, how do we develop all this? I'm sure you all would have brilliant ideas, but I'm going to share what ACC is doing. So we did this research. We now know what employers are looking for. We even knew before, but this gives us a very good focused way of knowing what employers are looking for. So we have done the research, and now that we have done the research, the second thing that we are doing is that we are looking at our qualification and assessing as to how much of our qualification covers what the employers are looking for. And we are looking at each and every competency. For example, if I take digital, in terms of digital, the employers are looking at some of the things, at all the things which are mentioned on the slide, for example, cybersecurity, data labeling, IT governance, IT strategy, robotics. And what we are doing is looking at our qualification and seeing how much of our qualification covers all these areas. And in parallel to it, we have done a survey just to know from the business leaders, as in our current form, in their own view, whether our qualification covers these elements of digital skills or not. For example, only 11% business leaders think our qualification covers, ACC qualification covers robotics, and that is very much true. It is not covered in that much detail. So now, using all these insights, we are reviewing our qualification, something that we've always done continuously, but now much more because of all the changes in a much more focused way. The second thing is, qualification does provide technical training. It does help to develop competencies, capabilities, but then to become an ACCA member, all our students have to go through a 3-year practical work experience. And our practical work experience structure was very much focused on how you develop this technical knowledge that's part of our qualification. But now we are looking at innovative way of developing employability skills. And again, we have talked to the business leaders to find out that to develop things like drive, collaboration, communication, influence, what are the things that our students need to be doing? And this is what the business leaders are saying. They're saying you need to be the accountants of today and tomorrow need to be committed to continuous learning. They should be mentoring. They should be mentoring. They should have access to mentors. There should be peer-to-peer networks. There should be opportunities for secondments within the organization, outside the organization, within the accounting team, outside the accounting team. There should be some development paths. And now, working with employers, we are trying to integrate all of this into our training that our students are going to receive. And we are looking at all of this in the accountants of today and tomorrow. So now, using all these insights, we are looking at each and every competency. For example, if I take digital, in terms of digital, the employers are looking at some of the things which are mentioned on the slide, for example, cybersecurity, data labeling, IT governance, IT strategy, robotics. And what we are doing is, looking at receive as part of the qualification. And one thing that we are focusing very much is continuous learning. Continuous learning for our existing members and for our future students. And in that context, we have developed a certificate in digital innovation for finance professionals, which gives a very good understanding of the digital skills that employers need. So in summary, how ACCA is trying to bridge the gap between between the capabilities that employers are looking for and what our qualification is presently doing are three things. Qualification review, we are reviewing our qualification, we are reviewing our training, and then we are committing to continuous learning in a much more focused way. And there is a fourth thing, and I should have mentioned it in the slides, but I haven't, but I can talk about it. And the fourth thing is communication. Sometimes we think ACCA qualification does have all that, if not all, most of what the employers are looking for, but we are not communicating it right. So the slide that I showed you previously, and I will go back to it. We are using this slide. This is what the employers want. And then we are populating this slide with what our qualification right now have and what we are developing. And just because we think it would help in bridging the communication gap and giving the employers a better understanding of what our qualification covers. So this is how we are trying to bridge the expectation gap between the employers and ACCA. Now, just to summarize, because I've been talking for a long time and I have given you a lot to think about, I do want to leave you with a few areas where I think ACCA, the academic world, and the employers can work together. And if we come together, and if we work together, we will be able to bridge the gap, and we will be able to provide the accountants of today and tomorrow the best chance of becoming leaders of the business. And these are some areas of focus, in my opinion. And I wish I could talk to you. I would have been able to get your ideas also, but I can't. That's a challenge, really. The first one is environmental social governance opportunity. This is not going to be going away. And it's not only reporting, it's external assurance, it's auditing, it's performance management, it's risk management. Anything that we can do to come together to develop the environmental social governance opportunity for accountants so that they are the one leading this environmental social governance agenda, it would work in the best interest of the businesses, accountants, and all of us. The other one is digital challenge. Technology is not going away. And it's not only going away, it is changing at a very fast speed. And the speed at which it is changing, nobody, no organization, no country, no academic on his or her own can manage this, can come up with the skills, can come up with the way on developing the digital skills that the accountants of today and tomorrow definitely need. A lot of collaboration is needed to make sure that as much as accountants can, they are the one, along with others, along with the data scientists, the IT people, are the one leading the digital transformation, the revolution. In terms of ways of working, it's quite clear that a lot of behavior skills need to be developed for the accountants to excel in a business world where the business model of working is changing. Hybrid working, speed of change, technology adaptation, we all need to come together to make sure that the behavior shifts which are needed, accountants do make those shifts and they make it at an accelerated speed. I do mention data centricity again because data analytical skills that are important. Given there is so much data, the future, I think even today and the future of accountants depend upon how good they are in analyzing the data, in becoming the custodians of data, in ensuring data integrity. So working together, if we can help our companies develop that skills, that would work in the interest of everyone. The last one is expectation gap. But I think unless and until we do not bridge this expectation gap that I remember has existed for a long time between the employers, the academics, the professional world, we would be talking about what employers want and what the skills are, even in 2050, if we all are alive. So the most immediate, urgent thing to me is that we come together to bridge the gap, that employers, professional bodies, universities, academics, governments, they all work together to make sure that what the employers want or what the employers think they want is what the academics and professional bodies are producing. If there is a communication gap, we come together to bridge this communication gap. So everything is important, but most important is coming together to bridge the expectation gap and thus giving employers the talent they need and the young people who have a dream of becoming professional accountants every opportunity to succeed. So this is what I wanted to say. I do hope I'm within time. Yeah, I am within time. Thank you so much for listening to me. Now I'm going to check the chat. All right, so I do see that people have posted some comments. Now I wish I could read Turkish, but I can't read Turkish. And that's one language that I've always wanted to learn. And the little Turkish that I've learned during my 20 trips to Turkey, I seem to have forgotten in the last 18 months. In my opinion, even if these developments that you're talking about seem to be a problem for practitioners, these developments are quite normal for generation, and these were born into these developments. I think that the X and Y generation are the ones who will have problems adapting to these developments. Yes, the latest generation. What do you think about the adaptation of generation X? And it is a very valid comment. I do think, I don't know which generation I belong to. So I'm going to use myself as an example, but I'm an old person. So I'm quite an old person. And adapting to technology doesn't even come very naturally to me. But the way I look at it is, I just don't have any other option now. Either I adapt to technology, either I adapt to the new ways of working. To me, even working from home to start with was a big challenge. I think I went through a mental challenge over there. But sometimes you just don't have any option. To survive, just leave aside Excel, that the only option is adaptation. And I think in the last 18 months, as I've adapted to this new way of working, I think I've been able to create opportunities and feel excited about it. So the first thing in any change is your own mental block. The change is hard, it's always hard. And that's why these days we have a lot of people talking about how important mental health is. It's the change. Change is hard, but I think the opportunities are far more and far more exciting. So despite the hardness of the change, the opportunities are the ones, and what those people who can get excited, I think that's the option. I know I haven't answered your question, and I'm sure there will be people who would be resistant, but I've tried to answer the question. I don't see any other questions, and I do think we only have a minute or two left.
Okay, is there another questions? Faisal Tanrıkulu. Okay, thank you about your presentation. So it's not a question. Is there another questions to Dr. Sajjad from the participants? Okay, I think there is no questions. Thank you very much, Dr. Sajjad, for your presentation. It was very interesting and inspiring for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and have a great conference and a great weekend. Thank you. Take care. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.